mommy and daddy and woo. Hey, yo!
We've been on the straight and narrow all year. No killing soups.
Karl, I'm going to start with you because the trailer spoiled it, so I'm not going to say anything, but you getting superpowers was like a pretty big reveal. So what was that
Butcher
like?
gets the V this season.
One of many, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like knowing you were going into this season with that information?
Yeah, it was fun. I've been having conversations with Kripke for a couple of seasons now, saying when is the point that we're going to move beyond bribery and coercion and finally get to that point. And I love the way that it was dealt with because it was all wrapped up in a moral dilemma. And it poses the question, how far are you willing to go? Are you willing to turn yourself into the demon in order to defeat the demon? And if you do, what is the cost? And I think that every character on the show gets posed that question and has to sort of deal with it in their own way. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was certainly a lot of fun to play in that special effects enhanced sandbox and, to exert some strength and see some insane effect in the real world.
Yeah, no, I will just say that I think folks are going to be very surprised to see all of the new twists and turns for season 3, but that is just the tip of the iceberg. And although you guys sort of say it, there's a lot of like moral and I think like very human questions that are asked in this series, but you guys get to have a lot of fun. And Karen, I'm guessing the dance scene was fun. I'm hoping it was fun. I don't know.
It was just as you would imagine, so much fun. I might say it was the most joyous day on set for Kimiko. It really is. I mean, she doesn't really get to experience the joys of life ever. And so that day was really special to me and her. I mean, the rehearsals leading up to it, I think, really kind of not only was it good for the dance number, but it also kind of strengthened Tomer and I's friendship, and it fueled the other emotional scenes as well. So it was kind of like summer camp, like going through training together.
Oh yes, more dance numbers, more musical numbers in general.
I know. I hope so.
I'm gonna go ahead and bring it to you on this one about Hughie, Jack, because the trailer again has given us a lot. It says that Billy's way may be the way, which is such a weird thing from Hughie after the events of season 2. So what it like? I feel like there's no path that stays straight with this show, and everybody changes course. So what was it like changing course with that sort of like crux of what you guys are doing?
I love it. I love that the show is able to surprise me in its writing so much. Just when I think it's going one way, it takes a completely different path. And I love it. I love being surprised as, I feel like viewers when I'm actually reading scripts for the first time. Because I'm like, whoa, we went there. It blows my mind. But, this season with Hughie, I love that he starts out in a happy place because we never see that from him ever. His life's been pretty rough for the last few years. Just to see him like enjoy himself was such an interesting thing to play. And of course, from the audience's perspective, he knows that everyone knows that's all on shaky ground, that he's actually in the lion's den. But to have him go back to the boys and go back to the old way is something he very much doesn't want to do. It's really rough on him because he finally thought he had it all figured out and he was in a good place in his life. And then just go back to the blood and the gore and the carnage is not a step that he wants to take, but it is necessary.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of like moral dilemma choices that they're all sort of going through it with this one. And then there's also the fact that you guys just keep adding new voices and faces, which is great. Karl, I have to ask you, when you knew Jensen was coming and you knew more importantly that he was going to be playing Soldier Boy, such a different take. What was your reaction to that, the character and the Jensen coming?
Well, really, I have to confess, I've never actually seen Supernatural. And so I was really pretty oblivious to that aspect of his career. But I had conversations with Kripke, and I remember Kripke just vouching for him, saying, this guy, you're going to love him. He's the greatest guy. He's professional to a T, and he will fit right in. And he certainly did. He arrived from day one and had such an elevated game. I think that he naturally inspired others around him to lift their game. And he was just a real pleasure to have on set, and he fit right in immediately. He just became, one of the family.
meant Kripke sort of evangelicalizing him to the group before he got there. It's like, is this kid from my other family, but you'll like him.
From my other family.
Yes. Jack, I want to talk to you a little bit about, I'm glad Amazon separated you guys a little bit, Erin, because I think it would have all been ship questions, but
okay, yeah.
We got to ask, where do we see the Hughie Starlight thing going in season 3?
Well, they start out in a really good place. And that was actually really interesting because I feel like in previous seasons, we've seen a lot of like, when are they going to get together? Will they get together? And it was really cool to play this season and to see them in an actual relationship and to see them like as a real couple. That was such a different aspect to their relationship that I didn't know I really wanted to see. And then I did. But then, as is typical for the boys, things start to go a little south, and navigating that new relationship. I can't say much, but navigating that new relationship with Erin was such a joy every day to come in and play that, because I don't know, I love working with her, and I feel like we always find moments that surprise both of us, and it was just such a interesting season for those two characters, and I felt like we took them to places we haven't seen before.
For once, I leveled the playing field. I show people the real me. I mean, they love me.
I want to start with this one for you, Anthony. It seems like this season, just based on the previews, is definitely amped up and so much bloodier than anything we've seen, which is saying a lot. What was your reaction knowing that they were going to go for it with this new tone and really take it to places they hadn't done in the previous 2 seasons?
I'm not sure that it is that different tonally to the first 2 seasons. I think the first 2 seasons are pretty, it's pretty full on. I mean, right off the bat, we had Hughie's girlfriend getting taken out by A-Train, which really set the tone of where the exploding body kind of set the tone, didn't it? It's easy for a show like ours that does dabble in the extremes of life and the extremes of the medium. It's easy to get lost in the weeds a bit with, just being gratuitous and sensationalist. And I think one of the things that we have done for sure is, as the show's gotten bigger, and definitely there is that, they have some very creative ways of of delivering ideas, shall we say. I think there's a lot of character, a lot of it is anchored to characters' needs. And I'll tell you the other thing is, we really get deeper into character as well. I think there's one scene coming up for me in episode 6 in particular where it is a pretty bizarre psychological scene, but it's actually, it's another view into the depths of this character. So I actually think across the board, yes, there's some pretty startling, explosive moments, but most of the show is rooted in in true needs of the characters.
Yeah, and I think that what's weird about it is, for as like heightened as all of it is, you can imagine these like strange workplace dynamics among these folks. We all sort of have them. And Erin with Starlight, I mean, based on y'all's Instagram and just what we've gleaned, and I watch a lot of these, you can tell you guys really have a collegiate and family atmosphere both on and off set. And so what was it like for you guys coming into it this year, knowing, especially the way Homelander and Starlight, their dynamic completely changes too in season 3?
I feel like their dynamic kind of has always been on that trajectory, and I feel like it kind of, everything becomes, the stakes are just higher because now we're co-captains, and I think Homelander is obviously drunk on power, and I'm a threat to his level of power. I think he perceives it as that when I become co-captain. I think because the stakes are so heightened, and as we've been saying, we're on opposite sides of the moral spectrum, that lends itself to a really interesting tension. But you're right, we do get along really well, and I actually think that's great because we're able to kind of, I don't know, the way we approach these scenes together and talk things out and try to find as many nuances in it as possible and find new flavors each season in the dynamic. When you get along with the other actor and you feel very comfortable with them, even if you're playing enemies, it helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, the cast is it's a tight cast, which is rare for a big group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, Eric gave Anthony, well, all of the cast, but he gave you, Anthony, I say a different compliment. He said the greatest thing about, he called you Ant, which I'm not going to be that familiar, but he says the greatest thing about Ant is that you are you advocate so much for Homelander, and the quickest way to get you irritated is when people call him a psychopath.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true.
This is the best. Yeah, this is the best thing about that, though, is this season, I think we start to see the pressure that he's been under really sort of like crack his facade in certain ways.
Yeah.
And so not calling him that, but definitely showing that whatever resolution he had, is the foundation of it is starting to break. I think that's going to be interesting. And do you think that is going to further dismiss the psychopath idea or help people to come to your way of thinking?
Since day one, we've always tried to give the reason why this guy is like he is. And I think that's what the thing with the psychopath thing is, like, everyone has a pretty stereotypical idea of what a psychopath is. And yes, there's no getting around it. Dude is probably a psychopath. But in terms of creating a character, like, that's so limiting because we very quickly slip into mustache twirly territory, and I don't want to do that, and Eric doesn't want to do that either. So I've tried to sort of erase that word, but and this season we do really get into, this guy has been basically a packaged, managed can of soup his whole life. And, he's always been wrangled and forced to behave in a certain way. And I mean, that's, it's such an unhealthy way to live. We create celebrities, we treat them so bizarrely in the real world, and then we get perplexed when they do things that are out of the ordinary that then we disapprove of. And it's like, well, what do you expect? And so this is very much the trajectory of Homie this season is it's the natural evolution of treating someone like that. Of course, he's got a God complex, and he comes crashing down, but then he rebuilds.
We're all we've got. It's up to us. I think I have something. Maybe we can use it to blow Homelander's brains out.
When you talk about the boys, I think everyone talks about taking it to the next level. So, Chace, I'll start with you. How do you feel they try to do that in season 3?
Oh, I mean, I felt like they did it in season 3. We did it. I mean, don't know if I'll work again afterwards, but we did it. No, it was a lot of fun. Obviously, there is those sort of moments where we definitely top ourselves, and the deep just I can't get it right with sea life. You just can't figure it out, especially not this year. But Kripke did keep it like grounded, like he does say. It's sort of the cover of the cereal box, right? It's sort of all this action and shocking stuff, but the character development was there. It's really interesting to see where everyone goes, and for me to see everyone else's work. But it's wild. Yeah, it's we had a lot of fun doing it. So
well,
yeah.
It looks like it. And that's the one thing you can really kind of tell. It's sort of like, if you have fun watching the boys, it's like you have to assume everyone had as much fun making it. And Claudia, what was interesting with your character last season is, like, she just showed us things that we didn't expect, that she's political, but also spoiler alert, superpowers and stuff. So what do you think about going into season 2, knowing that so much of what happened in season 2 is changing what you're able to do in season 3?
I mean, I was shocked in season 2 because I didn't know that she had superpowers until I got the script for that episode. So that was a shock to all of us. Yeah, that was a mind-blowing moment, no pun intended. But I just remember, I just was so in the dark, and it was such a great surprise. But in season 3, it's really nice because we get to see a softer side of her. We get to dive into her personal life and how that world functions, and the people that make up her personal life, which is, it was so much fun to just dive into that part of her world, to just find out more about her, because she's so kind of surface in season 2, or she's very unassuming, and then it was just nice to dig in.
I mean, Queens move in silence is the best way I would say with that one. Like, she literally, you did not know. And Jensen, I don't know if you can see, I got my Austin Public Library shirt on.
Yeah.
So shout out to Texas and Supernatural. But you joining this, anyone who's a fan of that show, anyone who's a fan of you knows your relationship with Eric and just how cool it is. And he said he felt like it was a great family reunion. But I imagine it's almost different for you because this was already his family and you're coming in and it's like, so what was it like for you joining this? Obviously great to reteam with him, but also, I don't know, it's different, right?
Sure. I mean, yeah, being, going from one Kripke world into another Kripke world was easy for me just because I feel so at home there. But at the same time, you're right. I was a guest in somebody else's house here. I think because the boss vouched for me, these guys at least gave me a chance. They didn't kick me out immediately. And yeah, no, the hazing happened through the writing.
I was just about to say,
how did they have to do anything?
Did they tell you everything they were going to do with Soldier Boy before they pitched it to you? Or is this something where they're like, we told you it was Captain America?
I feel like that's
no, that's his go. Yeah, it's like all of us. We read these scripts and we're like, oh, like I had several moments like that reading the scripts for this season. The hazing right out the bat, my first day on set, there was nothing between me and this new cast and crew but a sock. So I had to get comfortable very quickly.
The Deep has had a lot of, I would say, embarrassing moments. Basically, I'm thinking of all the embarrassing things that you did in season 1 and 2, and I'm just wondering, like, what is the most messed up one for you? Because it's great, but like, are people coming up saying,
"Get ready for season 3"?
Yeah, get ready.
I feel that.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I guess the most messed up one was probably season 1, where he gets kind of his comeuppance, and he gets assaulted, and it was just like small room. It was kind of hot, and they made this like my own torso for some reason. Well, I know the reason. It's because there was to get some it was like there was some room to get in there, and like and he was like screaming action, and it was just a really messed up day. I'm like, I need some air. She's going in there in the gills, and yeah, that was actually kind of intense, and it was disgusting. So yeah, but
memorable and great television, and the memes bear me out. Really quick, Jensen, the PSA, how much fun was that?
That was me and Phil Segrisha just literally coming up with it on our own. He just let me go for what felt like an eternity, and I was copying every angry actor that I'd ever worked with or heard about in my life. That was easy. It was fun.
Captured that.
Yeah.
You captured that so well.
What's this?
Makes you a soup for 24 hours. You're gonna need it.
The whole point of what we do is that no one should have that kind of power.
I have to start with this. Karl said a quote that I think will live in my brain forever. And he said that you guys ran out of fake blood by episode 3, which makes me think, considering how like visceral and intense and frankly bloody this show is, how did you guys go about saying you wanted to top everything that you did already?
I think we get there by not trying to top it, which sounds very zen. I always say to the writer's room, the mantra in the room is like, don't go bigger, go deeper. We never ask the question, how do we top it? We ask the question of like, okay, what is the core of that character that we haven't revealed yet? And how do we get deeper and deeper to, the real truth of who they are, and then expose that and dramatize that and torture them and blow it all up. But it's all about learning more and more about the characters as we go. And then just in the dramatizing of it, it just sort of seems to inherently lead to these bananas moments. Because, once you put superheroes in the real world, superheroes are so absurd. So once you bring those laws of physics into our world with our laws of physics, horrible things happen. And it's in that tension, it's in that conflict that the show really lives.
I love that. I would say honestly, after maybe like season 1, when folks got to know you and the show, I think people have been fan casting, bringing Jensen here, just knowing about the working relationship that you guys had. And so seeing him finally suited up for the boys was a very big moment. But what was it like for you? Like, that was such a long running thing, and your relationship on that, I'm sure is totally different with this, but what was it like bringing him over to this? And just seeing him in a very different role.
I mean, look, it was honestly the best. On Supernatural, I had already put him through so many different things over the years, and he can handle all of them. Like he can credibly do action, romance, charm. He can be scary. He's sort of the total package. And I sort of knew that. So I actually was excited because I know what he's capable of. And when you're on a show for 15 years, I mean, inevitably there's only so many colors you can show for that character, right? And so I was really excited to get him in and show like a whole other, show the audience that he can do a totally other character and a totally other tone and still do it successfully. So it was like a family reunion, you know, and it lets me write really confidently because like I know the actor so well.
Oh, that's so great to say. I mean, now in season 3, I would figure even with the actors that you maybe just got to know a couple of seasons ago, you're writing for them differently. And one that we've noticed is Homelander. Folks have already said, you know, his lies just keep coming back to him and he's like starting to crack, which is a very scary thing to think of because he's already who he is. But what conversations did you have with Antony about where you were going with the character? Because I feel like now it's almost like the world is open for what he could do, and that's a scary place.
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, you could define the mythology of the boys as like the slow unraveling of Homelander, with the understanding that eventually they're heading towards a complete sociopathic break. And then that's an apocalyptic problem. And that's for sure going to be, wherever the show ends, that's going to be the grand climax of the show, right? It's almost inevitable. And so the conversations I have with Ant a lot are like, okay, so then what are the guardrails and barriers that are keeping him from just like destroying the world? And he still needs love. And there's parts of him that are human. And he's like embarrassed by his own humanity, but it's there because that's who he is. And so that mess, that like snake's nest of psychology of like, you know, Ant and I always talk about Homelander as the weakest character in the show. Like his ego is so fragile and he's so easily insulted, and he needs love so nakedly, that there's a lot that is keeping him in control. But like once he starts realizing he doesn't need those things, you know, then God help us all. And last thing I'll say about Ant and why I love Ant is he genuinely, he's better at hiding it now than he used to be, but he's genuinely irritated when people call Homelander sociopathic or the villain or the bad guy. Like he's better at being, you know, being like, but he's like, he's a misunderstood character who never was loved and is doing the best he can in this horrific circumstance. And I'm just saying, like, I don't agree, but but that is the sign of a great actor. Like that's what a great actor does. It's his job to advocate for Homelander, because if he doesn't, no one will. And it's just
really no one will. Like,
I admire the shit out of it. And like Homelander has these moments of humanity, and that's because of what Ant, you know, reaches for.